The hour of 10 a.m. having arrived, I will call the House Ethics Committee to order. A quorum is present. I've got a few things I'd like to go through here before we get started. I'd just like to remind everyone that the rules, what the rules are of the committee hearing. Everyone must be seated when they are in the hearing room. There will be no standing or sitting in the walkways or aisles. If you need further accommodation, please let the sergeants know. Signs are not permitted in the hearing room. Please leave all signs outside. Clapping and other disruptions are not allowed. As Chair Moeller mentioned in the Ethics Committee on Tuesday, we do not accept public testimony. Now, where we get this a little confused is this is not a court of law. This is a House Ethics Committee meeting. So a couple of remarks I'd like to start with just so we kind of know where we're headed here. Today, the House Ethics Committee is called to order for the purpose of conducting a probable cause hearing for two complainants. The first complaint that we will take up was brought by Leader Long against Representative Hudson and Engen and was co-signed by Representative Falconer. The second complaint was brought by Representative Engen against Representative Falconer and was co-signed by Representative Schultz. I want to make a few introductory remarks and give some background on the process. The House Ethics Committee is not a court of law, and this process is legislative in nature, not judicial. The primary purpose of the House Ethics Committee is to create an avenue for representatives to hold each other accountable between elections. The ultimate accountability, of course, is the voters. Rule 610 of the House Rules states that a complaint may be brought about conduct of a member who violates a rule or administrative policy of the House, that violates accepted norms of House behavior, that betrays the public trust, or that tends to bring the House into dishonor, disrepute. Ethics committees must be signed, Ethics Committee complaints must be signed by 2 members and submitted to the Speaker of the House. Within 7 days of that submission, the Speaker forwards the complaint to the Ethics Committee, which holds a hearing within 21 days. And we have met those rules. Today we'll be holding the hearing to determine whether probable cause exists to support the complaints. Discussion and testimony taken at this hearing is only focused on the allegation contained in the complaints. Any attempt to discuss any further matter allegations outside the bounds of the complaint, and I will not allow it. Per Rule 7, the House Committee on Ethics Rules and Procedures, if a majority of the whole committee finds sufficient factual evidence exists to believe that allegations contained in the complaint are more probably true than not, the committee shall inform the Speaker and the members named that probable cause has been found, and there'll be further public hearings at that point. If the majority of the committee fails to find probable cause, the complaint shall be dismissed. Today's due process meeting will follow past practice, and the agenda is as follows. Representative Engen and Representative Hudson complaint, up to 45-minute presentation from Leader Long and Representative Falconer, up to 30-minute presentation from Representative Engen, 15 minutes for member questions, and up to 30-minute presentation from Representative Hudson, and then up to 15 minutes member question, and way heavy on the words up to. And we will be timing things so that everyone is treated fairly. Up to the 30-minute presentation from Reps. Engen and Schultz. This is for the Falconer complaint, up to 30 minutes presentation from Representative Falconer, up to 15 minutes of member questions. Committee staff will keep track of time. I will notify participants when you have 5 minutes remaining and when your time is expired. Ethics complaints are extremely rare. The Ethics Committee is unique among all the committees in the House. It's an inward-facing committee, a venue whereby legislators hold each other accountable. It's not a public policy-making body. The most recent ethics complaints were in 2021, 2015, 2009 were the last ethics complaints. Please bear with us as we navigate this somewhat unfamiliar process. Chair Moeller or nonpartisan staff, have I missed anything that we needed to go over?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think we've missed anything. I did neglect at the last committee meeting to welcome Representative Liz Ryer as the alternate to the committee. Before it was Representative Amanda Hemmensing-Yeager, who's now over in the Senate. So just wanted to make sure people understood why Representative Ryer was in the room. And then, Mr. Chair, I did have a question for you. So Representative Igo submitted a letter as part of his evidence, and it is a letter to Majority Leader Thune and Minority Leader Schumer about the boundary waters. It's an issue letter that I did sign on to. It's dated April 15th, and I just wanted to make sure that that you're okay with me continuing on, or if you felt that I needed to recuse myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Moeller, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. And I have done my due diligence, my research on the issue, and I see where in no way that has a conflict with today's hearing. So I would prefer if you stayed on. You know, that how many signatures are on that thing? I mean, everybody signed that letter out to Congress, and that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. So I'm perfectly fine with that if you are.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll note that I did check with nonpartisan counsel too to make sure that there was no conflict that I needed to be aware of with that. So,
and that's,
thank you.
If nonpartisan says there isn't, then there isn't. Okay, so with that being said, thank you for that, just for the record. Okay, so the first order of business is to approve the minutes from Tuesday, April 28th. Chair Moeller?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Chair Moeller has moved the minutes of April 28th. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Chair Moeller. Okay, so we will start with the Representative Engen and Representative Hudson. The complainants are Leader Long and Representative Sensor-Murrah. Is Leader Long ready to go? Okay, welcome to the Ethics Committee. If you could please make your presentation, and we have a person here timing things, so we'll.
Thank you, Chair Davids. Thank you, Chair Moeller and members. In no other job is it acceptable to leave in the middle of the workday to go drinking. And it should not be acceptable at the Capitol either. The public expects us to do our jobs. They expect that when they hire us, we will take the work seriously. Until recently, both Representatives Hudson and Engen were appointed to the Education and Finance Committee. On Thursday, March 26th, they left committee in the middle of a hearing to go to a local bar. And with members' permission, I'd like to present some slides and images to demonstrate. So the House Education Finance Committee gavelled in at 1 p.m. Representatives Engen and Hudson were not yet present. 5 minutes after the gavel, Representatives Engen and Hudson arrived together. 50 minutes after the gavel, Representative Engen left committee, as you can see in more detail from this video. Uh, 58 minutes after the gavel, Representative Hudson asked a question of one of the testifiers on House File 3930. 59 minutes after the gavel, Representative Hudson was last seen on the camera image from House Info. And then 63 minutes after the gavel is the next time we see Representative Hudson's chair, and he's no longer present. Discussion is still continuing at that point on House File 3930. At this point, you can see that neither Representative Engen or Hudson are there, and they are absent for the remaining 40 minutes of committee. They both left during consideration of House File 3930, which was a bill regarding funding to support teacher retention. At the time that they left, there was still an entire bill that the committee had not taken up for consideration, and that was House File 3585, which was a bill to establish an interagency council on student attendance. So they were absent from a bill to combat student absenteeism. It was a bipartisan bill presented jointly by Representative Bakeberg and Representative Keeler, really the model of the type of work we should be doing together at the legislature in a tied House. So where did Representatives Engen and Hudson go when they left committee early? Well, as you can see from this photo, they went to a local bar. And the reason we know this is that Mr. Brian Basham happened to be at the bar doing a DoorDash order and recognized them. He noted in his Facebook post that the two had both finished hard liquor drinks and had ordered beers. As you can see from the blown up image here, there is a completed drink of hard alcohol in a tumbler container that's visible in the photo here. And both of them have ordered tall beers that are visible in front of each of them. When asked by the press why he had snapped the photo, Mr. Basham said it bothered him that it was the middle of the workday and they were out drinking. Mr. Basham told KARE 11 News, quote, "The state of Minnesota is paying them to be here working, and they weren't here working." Mr. Basham noted the time in his Facebook post as 2:30 p.m. when he spotted Representatives Engen and Hudson. The Education Finance Committee was still meeting at that time. The minutes note that the committee adjourned at 2:55 p.m. It also appears that they had been there for some time when they were spotted, since they'd already finished one round of drinks. Leaving committee to go drink certainly violates accepted norms at the Capitol under Rule 6.10. It also violates the Education Finance Committee's own rules. Under Rule 4 of the Education Finance Committee, which I submitted for the committee ahead of time, quote, "Members are expected to attend all meetings in person." Let me read that again. Members are expected to attend all meetings in person. It further states, excused absences are at the discretion of the chair, and members requesting to be excused must notify the House DFL and House Republican Committee administrators prior to the hearing. It does not appear that either member requested an excused absence, and I highly doubt that Chair Joachim or Chair Krisha would have viewed a trip to the bar as a reason to excuse attendance. Our committees are the place where the bulk of the work at the Capitol takes place. They have quorum requirements to ensure that a minimum number of members are there to complete the work. We expect our colleagues to be there for this work. Indeed, the Education Finance Committee is one of the most sought-after committees at the Capitol and oversees a significant portion of the state budget. Its important decisions impact over 900,000 students attending schools in Minnesota. In addition to violating our norms, these actions violate the public trust and bring the House into dishonor under Rule 6.10. Mr. Basham told the press that regardless of which party you were from, it would bother him to see them out drinking when they are being paid by the public to do work. Poll after poll shows that trust in government is declining. The public expects at a bare minimum that we are doing the work, hearing bills, debating them, amending them. It is an embarrassment to this institution to have the press cover stories of legislators leaving committee to drink, which for any regular job would be a sanctionable offense. Think of a nurse or a teacher or a retail worker who left in the middle of the day to head to a bar. There would certainly be consequences for any of those employees. Minnesotans don't expect that of each other, and they expect better of our representatives. Beyond the direct evidence we have of leaving committee an hour early, there are also unanswered questions that are equally troubling. We reconvened in session at 3:30 p.m., about an hour after Representatives Engen and Hudson were spotted at the bar. Votes were taken in that session on critical matters, including gun violence prevention and ICE presence in Minnesota schools. We don't know the intoxication levels of Representatives Hudson or Engen when we were back in session taking important votes. We don't know how they got back to the Capitol. Certainly, the public and our colleagues expect that members are not inebriated on the floor when we make important decisions about our laws. We also know from press reporting that Representative Hudson has a permit to carry and that he was carrying that day. It is a misdemeanor under Minnesota Statute 624.7142 to carry a concealed weapon with a blood alcohol content above 0.04. And to put that in context, this is well below the legal limit to drive, which is what we typically think of from press reporting about blood alcohol content. And to put 0.04 in context, as you can see from this chart from St. Ben's and St. John's, most people reach a blood alcohol content above 0.04 after 2 drinks. And we know based on the witness photograph that Representative Hudson had at least 2 drinks before returning to the floor. So it's an open question whether Representative Hudson was carrying on the House floor, and if so, if he was committing a misdemeanor while doing so. If true, violating the law while in the course of performing your duty as a representative would certainly further betray the public trust and bring the House into dishonor. Committee members, I know it's a serious thing to bring an ethics complaint, and it's not an action that Representative Sensor-Moore or I take lightly. The evidence in the complaint we submitted is as clear as it comes. It is photographic proof. Leaving committee nearly an hour early to drink violates our norms, the public's trust, and brings the House into dishonor. It violates the rules of the Education Finance Committee, which requires in-person attendance or to be excused. I have seen no public apologies or even acknowledgement from either member to date regarding the actions taken during the legislative workday. In fact, I've seen public defiance and an attempt to deflect by pointing at others. Nearly all of Representative Engen's submitted exhibits for today don't relate to him at all, but instead to actions of other elected officials. It appears that a main argument may be other elected officials drink and drive too. To be clear, the complaint that Representative Sensor-Moore and I submitted does not relate to criminal activity away from the Capitol. There is a separate court process to resolve those issues, and as you noted, Mr. Chair, this is not a court. This is a legislative body and a legislative committee. Our complaint is squarely focused on the actions taken during a legislative committee hearing and on the floor. These actions are clearly within the purview of this committee. We cannot send a message to the public or to our colleagues that this is acceptable behavior. We need to make absolutely clear that this can't happen again. Without accountability, we'd set a precedent that future members can hide behind if they choose the same irresponsible actions. Some might suggest that the removal of Representatives Engen and Hudson from their committee assignments was punishment enough. First, removing the members from committees after deadline is hardly a penalty. There are no more committees for them to miss. But more importantly, Speaker Demuth was clear in her public statements that she removed them from committees in relation to them getting pulled over later that night and not in relation to them leaving committee to drink. She said, quote, "I am making my decision based on the police report and the information that I received. I am not addressing a photo that was out there, not addressing that at this time." So there has been no consequence directly related to the actions on which the complaint is focused. The question then for you all is what disciplinary action is appropriate. And that's a question that I leave to your capable judgment, but I ask that you do not let this behavior go unsanctioned. The public deserves better, our colleagues deserve better, and this institution deserves better. Thank you, Chair Davids. Thank you, Chair Moeller. Thank you, members.
Okay, we will now go to respondents. Representative Engen, you and your council have up to 30 minutes for your presentation.
Bear with me, Mr. Chair, just getting this technology set up. Thank you.
Your time doesn't start until you get going. So.
Well, thank you, co-chairs. Thank you guys for being here. I know it's not under the most fun circumstances, but I'm going to start out by saying this. Before we get into the substance of the complaint that's before the committee today, I do want to acknowledge my remorse, my shame, and my regret of the actions of the 27th. I'm holding myself accountable because I broke a set of standards that I hold myself to that I care about. Sorry to my family, my friends, and everybody that's been supportive, as well as the officers. I'm extremely thankful for them on the events of that evening. But when it comes to this complaint, to assert that I am anything other than a hard worker and a man of integrity as it pertains to my job as a state representative is ridiculous. That committee to which Representative Long speaks of, I missed precisely 0 votes. I spoke twice within that committee. I asked a question which was not answered. And 3 preceding bills all included the same substance to which I asked a question regarding Minnesota Department of Education grant funding, oversight, and management dollars. The bills that we had before us were regarding student mental health, teacher retention, and workforce burnout. And I didn't feel it a good thing for MDE to take money away from those programs should those laid over bills be potentially included into an omnibus bill. So what did I do? When the MDE policy analyst and public policy lobbyist sat down, I decided that it was not worthy of my time to listen to them advocate for more funding for themselves after having overseen over $250 million in fraud in grant oversight and management when it came to feeding our future. And what did I do after that? I left committee, I used the restroom, I called my wife, I charged my phone, and I got lunch in the little amount of time that we had that was available before the workday kicks right back up. I think all of you know that this isn't a typical 9-to-5 job. And it's not one that comes with a punch card, but it can be around the clock some days, and you can have very, very little time to use the facilities or eat. That's what I did. And having had a single beer, it did not in any way, shape, or form change my duties or my actions. I spoke on the House floor that evening for over 9 minutes, and I genuinely cared about the substance of the bills that were before the House floor that day. But again, I want to thank you all for being here. Happy to answer any questions, and I'll turn it over to my attorney.
Please state your name and who you represent for the record. What firm?
My name's Chris Maddle. I'm with my own firm. It's called Maddle PA, and I represent my friend and client, Representative Engen.
Thank you.
You bet. So if what I heard correctly here from Representative Long is that our complaint does not involve activity outside of the legislature, yet that was all he talked about. He actually went so far as to spend money on a board putting up a picture of 2 guys on West 7th at a bar and grill having a burger and a beer. That is entirely what your complaint is about, and let's not make any jokes about it or any mistake about it. And I think it's important to look at the entire record as to what happened as opposed to some little pictures with some outlines on some people. First, 1:39 to 1:41 p.m. This is a video of Representative Engen asking a question at that committee because he was asking the question because the Minnesota Department of Education gets 5 to 10% of every grant to the Department of Education, regardless of where it goes, including feeding our future. And he was asking, is the Department of Education yet again going to be getting money from yet another grant that should be going to students? Let's listen to his question and the answer.
Thank you. We're going to go to Rep. Engen and then Chair Kim to close out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chair Joachim. My question for you is grant O&M. Are there going to be costs associated with grant oversight and management from MDE should this bill pass with money appropriated?
Chair Joachim.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Engen, for the question. So there's a statute that passed back in 23 or 24 regarding that there's an underlying appropriation that's held back from the grants, the money we put in, 5% if it's a legislatively directed appropriated grant, and 10% if it's competitive. I fooled around with the idea of lowering that percentage to MDE, but left it as is because we were laying it over on the table because I wanted this to be the start of the discussion, especially with what Representative Hudson said. How do we get there? How do we figure out how to make this a stable force and ongoing? But no, that's already in statute, and we didn't touch that statute.
A follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that. I am a part of this generation. You know, my brother is still a high school student. He's experienced a lot of the mental health concerns that have been brought up by your testifiers, as well as shared in some of the member testimony on this bill. The last thing I want to see is even a single cent of that going towards an agency that has seen over $10.6 million in grant oversight and management costs in the past 3 years. And if we're going to be denying them the resources that we just heard that they need, all for a grant oversight. That seems like it's a misplaced priorities to me. So should this bill go forward, I'd love to see those changes made. Thank you.
And of course, now we know that the vote didn't actually go forward. In fact, the Education Committee then continued at 1:53 to 1:54 p.m. and ended with this.
And so we are here to support this bill and would be eager to answer any and all of your questions.
Thank you. I think I'm going to have you, we have one more testifier. I'll have one of you step aside and then be around for questions, and I'll call up our next testifier, Dr. Justin Killian. Once you get settled, go ahead and please state your name for the record and proceed.
As Mr. Killian comes to sit down, Representative Engen leaves the room. And
Chair, members of the committee, Representative Hill, thank you. My name is Dr. Justin Killian.
And Dr. Killian, by the way, is a public policy director for the Minnesota Department of Education, one of approximately 40 that are at the Minnesota Department of Education. Query what a policy director does at the Minnesota Department of Education, but there were no votes taken whatsoever at this thing. So Representative Engen did the high crime and misdemeanor of getting his phone charged, talking to his wife, and going to the bathroom, and then getting something to eat. And he went to what has now become the kind of most regular place for the Republicans in the legislature to go for lunch, Burger Mo's. And then we have the offending picture of two friends eating and having a beer over lunch. Now, what I just heard from Representative Long, and again, he said that he had no evidence of this, and of that, I agree. You have no evidence that they were impaired when they came back to the floor. You have no evidence that Walter Hudson was impaired, sitting there and with a firearm. You have nothing with respect to that. You have a couple of guys drinking a beer over lunch. But you then emphasize, though, sir, you emphasize that one of the things that Representative Engen did is that he missed out on a debate regarding bipartisanship.
Sir, if could you speak to us?
What he missed out on a debate regarding bipartisanship. Let's look at that night. And this is a 3 minutes of an 8-minute speech that Elian Engen gave that night regarding bipartisanship.
But passing this bill is something that we can do so that less people feel and hear that sound and the profound pain that comes with it. Thank you, members. I ask you for a green vote.
I recognize the member from Minoka, Representative Engen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to say to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, thank you for caring about this issue. I mean that. And while we might not always come down on the same side of how we get there, Representative Tabke, Representative Johnson, I think your words do mean a lot. And they mean just as much, actually, nothing could ever mean as much as Jackie and Mike's, Harper's parents who did testify in our committee. Before I was sworn in here in the legislature, I remembered a moment back in 2012, it was December 14th, that I watched on the smartboard of one of my classrooms that the teacher turned on, a bunch of kids coming out of a school building in Newtown, Connecticut with their hands on their heads because they'd just gone through and experienced a school shooting. The look of fear, uncertainty, distress, trauma. All of my friends and I, we stopped, we watched that board after we were being rowdy, rambunctious, and probably idiots like we were, but we went silent, and it stuck with me. Why did it stick with me? Because it was the first time that we'd ever recognized our own mortality in a school building. And that this was becoming a more and more common, disgusting, and sad occurrence within our schools, that people would look to do harm to the most vulnerable amongst us. 10 years later, in June of 2022, that's when Uvalde happened. I wasn't elected yet. I wasn't sworn in yet. I was in the middle of a campaign. But I knew that if I did get sworn in, I'd want to do something about this issue. And one of the things that I remember sticking out to me, drawing me to tears, in the press conference at the White House after this issue occurred, was a story about Maita Ulayance. She was shot in the Uvalde school shooting, and the only way that they could identify that 10-year-old girl was by the self-painted green on her Converse shoes with smiley faces. That's what her parents had to identify her. It broke me. I didn't know how to react. I just knew something needed to be done. And Representative Tabke, you said it. Let's just get something done. You said those exact words. Representative Greenman, do something to make it right. I agree with you.
Representative Engen was asking to do was to put security in schools that immediately when a teacher or something was happening in school would have locked down that school and created it into his words, a ghost town. And what was done on that? Jack squat. Nothing. So I'm not going to sit here and listen to these cries of bipartisanship when my kids are still going to public school to this day and are in jeopardy because this body doesn't work.
Mr. Chair, this is.
I am not going to listen to
this is irrelevant.
Sir, if we could talk to the Engen
I am
complaint.
responding to his claims of bipartisanship about how Elliot Engen missed out on bipartisanship, Chair Moeller. He
Mr.
said
Chair.
it, not me.
Mr. Chair.
Let's time out.
He's talking about his own personal family and
Right.
situation.
Let's
That's
keep it to the-
inappropriate.
Sir, let's keep it to the Engen situation.
If we go further, the floor session ended, and then we talk about the Constitution of the United States, which, yes, you're obligated to follow just like everybody else, which provides for due process of law, and you cannot deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Well, is that happening? Senator Tu Jiang, DUI, 2022. Fourth degree, driving while impaired, DUI, operating motor vehicle, alcohol concentration .08 within 2 hours. Pled guilty. Nothing happened before this committee. He got his second one. It's the second time the Star Tribune said he took office, said he's been arrested for suspicion while driving while intoxicated. He gets charged by criminal complaint this time 1 year ago, 2 counts, guilty. Nothing happens. Dan Wolgamott, 2023, video of this one, same 2 charges, guilty. He said, I take full responsibility. DFL State Representative Wolgamott apologizes for DUI arrest. Now, we just heard from Representative Long that Senator Engen never really took responsibility for what happened. This is his ex post that night. To my family, colleagues, and constituents, I am deeply sorry. I strive to be a man of good character. My actions fell short last night. I will learn from this. I will do better, Elliot. That night. Breon Curran, 2023, same 2 charges, 4th-degree DUI, driving alcohol concentration 0.08 within 2 hours. And in her case, she allegedly told the deputy that they were having trouble getting home and thought they were in St. Paul, 50 miles from Harris. The complaint alleges they told officers they had consumed 3 drinks. Well, interesting. Harris, 41 minutes away from St. Paul. Guilty. Nothing happens. The current Public Safety Committee is chaired by Representative Kelly Moeller. Breon Curran, still sitting on that committee. No repercussions whatsoever. He's been stripped of his committee assignments. She's sitting there. They sitting there. Let's put aside Senator Nicole Mitchell, guilty. Let's put aside the governor, who has a DUI and is guilty. Let's also remember, with respect to Sweeney's, which has its bipartisan lawmakers who dine together across party lines get a free meal and beers. Well, here's one. Well, I guess that's Senator Young, and who's that? Representative Bjorn?
Mr. Chair, I don't believe this was submitted. Hold on.
Excuse me, sir. Chair Moeller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't recall seeing this submission in our packets. Was this submitted?
It was provided.
It's right here.
There's beers.
This particular picture?
Oh, I don't know.
And here's
No.
Julia Coleman.
Yeah, we've
And-
never,
oh,
Mr. Chair, we've
wait a
never
minute.
seen.
Okay,
any
time out,
of
time
these.
out.
More
time out.
beers. More beers.
Sir, time out. Let's stick to the things that have been submitted here. And
I believe it has.
I don't see it.
Representative Engen believes the same thing. In any event, Sweeney's publicizes this. Here's pictures on the internet, legislators at lunch having beers. To use something that I've used in a number of closing arguments, it's a Danish proverb. Better the world should know you as a sinner than God know you as a hypocrite. Lord knows I'm a sinner. Representative Engen has admitted that he's a sinner. We ain't no hypocrites. This is a good man. He does not need to be treated this way for political theater. I have represented people on both sides of the aisle that are existing legislators right now. I know what goes on here. I know what happens at that northeast exit. I know when you leave there occasionally, you can go out there and smell pot. And I've seen the people that are doing that,
Mr. Chair, again, this
Sir,
is not enough.
let's
doing
keep
nothing
it-
about it.
Sir, let's keep it to the Engen case here, please.
I'm asking for equal protection. I'm asking for this body to actually do something with bipartisanship and not do something with theater. Do something for HCMC, which is going broke. Do something for kids in school.
Again, Mr.
Stop
Chair,
doing
this
Sir,
is
please,
related to
please.
policy, not the ethics complaint.
Yes, let's keep it to the ethics complaint.
Stop doing this nonsense. Get to work. Nothing further.
Like to wrap it up, Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say this. That day, I was working extremely hard, as demonstrated by the video that was evidenced. I spoke twice within the committee that's been referenced as to the one that I quote-unquote missed, but 0 actions were taken that I had any jurisdiction or vote on. I spoke for over 9 minutes on the House floor that evening. I talked with many of you about bills that I'm working on and bills that you're working on in a bipartisan manner. I conducted myself in a way that I would be proud of that day. That evening, it's a different story. And I'm atoning for that. And while it's still fresh, I can honestly say that it's going to make me stronger. It's going to make me better. And that God puts roadblocks potentially in your life that help you course correct. They refine you. That's what I'm doing. But as it pertains to my official duties, I take those as seriously as anybody else, if not more. I'm the first in the office and often one of the last to leave. And I don't know if you guys saw me in my first term versus today. I think it's aged me a little bit because I care. So with that, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Representative Engen. Committee members, we will now go to member questions. We have up to 15 minutes to ask questions. Does anyone have any questions? Chair Moeller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, thank you obviously for being here. Were you excused from the committee, the Education Committee, by either of the chairs at the time you left?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Co-Chair. It's typical for people to leave, come and go as in committee as often as they see fit. There was no business, and so I believe other members were missing. And it hasn't been enforced by the committee in any way, shape, or form for people to have to request to use their facilities or make a phone call or meet with a constituent in the past. So it wasn't something that was even considered, and nor is it probably to this day.
Representative Moeller.
After you left the committee, though, did you come back?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Seeing as there was no official business before the committee when it came to a vote, seeing as we were listening to bills that MDE had grant oversight and management dollars taken from, and having asked a question related to that, and it kind of be scoffed away as something that we can't do anything about because a law was passed in 2023 during the trifecta. I didn't see need to sit through a committee in which MDE advocates for money for MDE. So no, I did not return. I went to the next opportunity for me to be productive and to actually represent my constituents, which was on the House floor where I then spoke for 9 minutes.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Where in the rules does it say it's okay to leave committee as long as no votes are considered?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. I would say that if the new standard is going to be that we can no longer leave committee when no business is before the committee, that we're going to be in this ethics committee. There's going to be a lot more hearings happening on any day that ends in Y, because this is common practice. We all know how little time we have throughout the day to eat, use the facilities, make a phone call, meet with a constituent. Those are all normative practice of this institution. And to say otherwise, I think, is disingenuous.
Chair Moeller.
When did you, do you admit that you were at Burger Mo's when the committee was still proceeding?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. So based off of that image that Mr. Bryan, I don't know his last name, but the photo that was circulated, I zoomed in on the inning of the Twins game, which was opening day. They were in the bottom of the second. There's a 2-2 count, and there are 2 outs. The only instance that took place with that scenario was when Tyler O'Neill was batting, the left fielder, and it was at 2:48. The committee ended at 2:54, and there was no business before it. So a cumulative total of 7 minutes, plus whatever it was for me to order a burger, that's how long I'd been there. So it wouldn't take us as long as Representative Long or Senator Mira alleged that we were there in some drunkenly fashion, which we weren't. We were eating. Maybe I'd been there for a cumulative total of 15 minutes at most.
Chair Moeller.
Does it say anywhere in the rules that you can leave committee because you don't like the witnesses who are testifying or the content of their testimony?
Representative Engen.
Several members from the DFL have done the exact same. When MPPOA or the sheriffs or others in our Public Safety Committee, of which you're the chair, Chair Mueller, members have left the committee because they simply didn't want to hear something. And that was when official business was taken. No official business or duties were taken the day that I left committee. That wasn't an opportunity for me to represent my constituents. It was one in which I was expected to sit down and listen to bureaucrats advocate for more money for themselves sitting in St. Paul boardrooms, not students and teachers in classrooms who actually need it. I didn't feel it a good use of my time to continue to listen through that after having asked a question on it and having been told that I wasn't, that nothing was going to change on that front.
Chair Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you left committee during House File 3930, and you talked a little bit about that and had evidence. There was also House File 3585, which was a bill about student attendance. Were you present for these testifiers? Matt Shaver, Senior Policy Director, Ed Allies. Patrice Relaford, Vice President of Collective Impact and Giving, Minneapolis Foundation. Megan Arillo, Legislative Policy Manager for MDE. Kalike Rogers, Executive Director, Catalyst for Systems Change. Zarili Basul, Minnesota Youth Council Coordinator, or Lawrence Wells, a student.
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Chair Mueller, you're proving my point. These are activists and bureaucrats and people within MDE that are testifying in support of getting money to themselves. And I read that bill. It had an unspecified appropriation with no sunset date or official definition as to what the Interagency Council on Student Attendance was supposed to report back to the legislature. I think that these are the institutional issues that we should be concerned about. The fact that we're coming forward with bills that don't have a cost, a stated cost, they don't have a stated goal or a stated end date, and yet we continue to use more taxpayer dollars because of it. I wasn't going to listen to that because I'm frankly too used to that in this place. Nonsensical ideas that I have no say in that are then expected to pass before me without my vote. So no, I did not listen to those testifiers.
Chair Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I don't know that they're all bureaucrats. We had many that I listed as student, youth council coordinator at Allies, so that actually isn't accurate. Does it say anywhere in the rules that it's okay to leave committee and go to a bar because you're going to give a speech on the floor later?
Wasn't that asked and answered?
Representative, this is not a court of law, sir.
Well,
Representative
not a
Engen.
potted plant to represent Brendan Sullivan here. I mean, are we just going to ask and answer the same questions?
It's a different question.
Different question. Representative Engen.
Sorry for the delay here, guys. So what I know about this place is that in many ways, it allows for the illusion of representative government. It doesn't always allow for true representative government. There are rules that are expected to be followed, and of which I don't believe I broke any that day. Like I said, called my wife. I took time to use the restroom. I went and ate lunch, and then I continued my workday. But there were several instances in the past of which many of us know about. It's kind of the well-known secrets of this place that there is unethical behavior going on. We have a Senate president who carried and passed legislation appropriating over $6 million to his business partner. We have the chair of the
Representative Engen, that's not an
to
answer to the
ethics.
question.
I could go on for literally an hour about true ethics violations that I don't believe have been addressed. And while I'm remorseful for my actions on the early morning of the 27th, to say that I was anything other than official and professional in my duties the day of the 26th is quite frankly wrong. And my work ethics stands for itself.
Chair Mueller.
I think one final question for me, Mr. Chair. So are you saying that you are professional and diligent in your duties when you left committee during a bill presentation, did not return either for that presentation or the next presentation, and went to a bar while the committee was still proceeding? Do you say that is professional and diligent?
Representative Engen.
I would say that it is just as professional and diligent as not showing up to the State of the State address, of which members on both sides didn't, because either they had other obligations or they don't see it fit to sit through a political speech, which in many ways was what was happening in the Education Finance Committee. We didn't have say over those votes. There were no votes. Those bills were laid over for possible inclusion into an omnibus bill. And when you do ask questions and they're not answered, or there's nothing you can do to change it, that doesn't sound like productive use of time or representative government. So yes, I think it is professional to go and take a few moments to call your wife, to use the restroom, to grab lunch before then resuming duties that are actually productive and conducive to my role as a representative.
Chair Moeller. Chair Claiborne.
Thank you very much, Chair Davids. Representative Engen, you've stated that you have expressed remorse. Today in this testimony, I'm hearing a lot of rebuttal. When we talk about the work of the committee and representative government, do you believe that representative government requires listening to members of the public?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative. So I've been truly remorseful. I've had to look myself in the mirror and know that someday my son is going to Google his last name and he's going to see his dad's most embarrassing time amongst those searches. And that's tough. That's extremely tough. And for a couple of days, I really beat myself up and I was in a really dark place because of that. And then I came to find that that embarrassing moment is also a lesson, and it's a teachable one. Not only for him someday, but for myself right now. It's allowed me to be more intentional, more present, and refine me as it refined the values and characters of me that are best when I'm at my best self. And so, yes, I'm truly remorseful for that. Now, to your secondary question, members of the public weren't testifying. We heard that those were nonprofit leaders to which they donate a lot of money to the DFL party, to be quite frank, at allies amongst them. And then MDE, which we know is over 40% of the state budget, and yet 47% of our kids can read at grade level. They're overseeing that. I didn't see it necessary to listen to their opinions about a bill that would give them more money.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So members of the public who make up nonprofits are not participatory in the representative democracy. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative. No, what I'm saying is that they're overrepresented in this institution, whereas regular members of the public who are out doing their 9-to-5s, scraping by, hoping that they can put enough gas in the tank or pay their utility bill at the end of the month, they don't typically get to come up here and have a say in the legislation that gets passed. And I think that that's a travesty. And so instead of listening to the people that get overrepresented, the nonprofits that received $2.6 billion in appropriations in 2023 and 2024, I'm not sure that we need to continue to listen to them in the state of what those same nonprofits have overseen in the fraud space as well. So, no, to your question.
Chair Claiborne.
Thank you very much, Chair Davids. So when you show up for work and you come to work every day, do you consider drinking as a normal part of your workday?
Representative Engen.
Alcohol?
Drinking alcohol, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. I understand where you're getting at. Did I have a singular beer at lunch? Yes, I did, while watching the Twins game and talking with a work colleague about work. I think that that was a normal instance. Now, if you take a look at what happened at Sweeney's not that long ago, that was
Talking about
promoted.
Sweeney.
I know, I'm talking about it now.
Let's go through the chair here.
Thank you.
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sweeney's was celebrated for their idea for this bipartisan lunch. If you bring a member of the opposite party and you sit down at a table together, you get both a free meal and a free beer. And several of our members did so. And they did so at lunch before then returning to the floor or the Senate chambers where they would then speak. So under those exact same premises, is that not worthy of an ethics committee violation? I don't think that that is. In fact, I think that that's a good thing. And I think that leaving for an hour in the very little time that we have that's free to go and converse about the duties of that evening's floor session with my friend and colleague, Representative Hudson, I think that that was within the realm of a professional and normal day.
Chair Claiborne.
Thank you. You state that you had a beer, but there were empty glasses on the table, beverage glasses for a whiskey drink. Can you please explain to me how those glasses got emptied?
Yeah,
Representative Engen.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative. There was another person that was present at that table. It was a friend, somebody who works within the Capitol complex, but I can't recall what time that they left. I don't know if that's the same drink that they were having, but I did notice that glass on the table as well. And I can tell you, we didn't have the time to have multiple drinks. We ate I think Representative Hudson had soup. I had a burger, and then I had a beer. And I'm having to litigate this as if it's some sort of a high crime or misdemeanor. I ate lunch.
Mr. Chair.
Chair Claiborne.
Thank you. You have stated numerous times that the business of the committee had been concluded. However, the adjournment happened several minutes after you left. So there was still ongoing business. You maybe did not find it worth your time, as you've stated, but there was still work of the committee. Do you believe that listening to other legislators gives you any insight into their thinking, or do you believe that, well, I'll just stop that.
Again,
Representative Engen.
we've plowed this ground, Mr. Chairman.
This is not a court of law, Representative Engen.
I understand, but we're
Representative
wasting
Engen.
further
I
time
can
by
answer
answering
it.
the exact same
That's
question.
okay, I can answer it. Mr. Chair, Representative, I don't see that business comes in the sense that I can't ask questions that get direct answers, that receive direct answers when I ask them. I don't see it as useful that the institution has insulated itself from true thinking, organic thought, and work when it comes to 24-hour amendment rules. If I could change legislation that was before the committee, rather than have it be laid over and my opinions be nothing other than, just dead words as they were in that committee, as they are in most committees, then I would have stayed. But I have zero ability to change what's in front of the committee or ask questions that get answers to it. So to listen to MDE or nonprofit activists who seek to financially benefit from the bills that are purported to help students and teachers in classrooms, when in reality, they're being advanced by people who have kind of a middleman ground and stake to play in that. I don't think that that's a good use of my time or the committee's time.
Chair Claiborne.
Thank you. I just want to look at the timeline, just one more minute. If you can give me a little bit of grace for a second. Okay. So we heard in earlier testimony that the Education Committee is a highly sought-after committee. Would you agree with that?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative. Actually, I was originally on elections, and then due to an inter-caucus agreement, I elected to go on education after it was asked of me. But it might be sought after by other legislators, yeah.
Okay. So
Chair Claiborne.
thank you so much, Chair David. And you have stated that it controls a large part of our budget. Is that correct?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative. I believe it was a $2.2 billion education omnibus bill in 2023, and that somehow led to a 35-year record high in teacher layoffs and over 60 unfunded mandates. So yeah, it's a pretty big deal. I know schools are struggling right now. Yeah.
Chair Claiborne.
Thank you. And you felt it was more important to go drink a beer instead of listening to the testimony in a budget, in a
That's
committee
the
that
fourth
controls a
time now,
2.2
Mr.
budget.
Chairman, the fourth time that question's
Engen.
been asked.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative. I'll answer it, despite the poking and prodding nature of it. I don't want to listen to the same people who I believe put us into that bad position of a 35-year record high in teacher layoffs, 47% literacy rates amongst our students, and a really bad state of affairs when it comes to our schools budgeting right now. I don't see it necessary or useful to listen to the people who broke the system tell me that they're going to be fixing it with more money to them. So that's why I left.
Chair Claiborne.
Thank you. And so would you want other members of the committee to leave when you were discussing your priorities?
Representative Engen.
If they had the ability to change what it is that I had put forth in the form of an amendment, in the form of a bill that could be voted on, then I'd like them to tell me if I can refine my bill. But if they don't have that opportunity and they're nothing other than a fly on the wall that imitates a representative government and gives the appearance of that, but in reality their voice carries no weight, then I would invite them and welcome them to leave committee, because they're not able to do a job that actually represents people.
Chair Claiborne?
Thank you. So, this committee really should be talking, we should be talking about what ordinary Minnesotans think of our behavior, right? So when an ordinary person goes to work, as we heard in the earlier testimony today, do you think that and I'm talking about ordinary people, right? The people who were serving you that day, did you think it would be appropriate for them to be able to take a break and go have a drink because maybe they didn't want to serve you?
Representative Engen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative. I guess I don't understand the question. This isn't necessarily an ordinary type work style.
So I'm asking you, when you are being paid to do a job, right? You are being paid by the taxpayers to do a job. Do you think the ordinary taxpayer wants you to go out and have a drink in the
Have you
middle
ever
of the
shopped
day?
online while at work?
Excuse
Sir,
me.
you haven't been recognized.
I would say,
Representative Engen.
Mr. Chair, Representative, not only do I work an extensive amount of hours, far above and beyond the part-time legislature model that we say we are, but in reality, we all know it's a full-time job. I'm extremely grateful to every taxpayer that helps pay for my salary or pay for my per diem. I think that extends far and above and beyond what I expect. I would do this job for free because I love it so much and I take it so seriously. But simultaneously, I think a reasonable person, an average Minnesotan, would see taking a lunch with a full packed workday in which you have back-to-back committee hearings, back-to-back-to-back committee hearings, and then a large chunk of time in which bills being heard before a committee can't be voted on and are more of the same problem that Minnesotans find themselves in when it comes to inaffordability and the state of our schools. I think that they would see it as completely common sense and practical to not want to sit down and be lectured by the same people that broke it.
Chair Claiborne?
Thank you. This will be my last question, and it's a yes or no question. Do you think the ordinary taxpayer, when they send you to the legislature, expects you to go drink at lunch? It's a yes or no question.
I'll answer it. So,
Representative Engen?
thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative. I would say that the average taxpayer is sick and tired of watching as we spend time on political charades like this and not on addressing fraud, which has cost $9 billion. Am I remorseful for the events of the 27th? Yes, I am. And I own
building
it.
a base.
Completely, I
Go ahead.
own it.
Yep.
I put that onus on nobody but myself, and I have to live with that shame and with that guilt. But I'm also going to be made better because of it. But I won't be characterized as a bad or as a lazy legislator. I'm simply not those things. I'm not. You can ask my wife. She's like, when are you coming to bed? I haven't seen you in 2 days. These are all commonplace occurrences within our household because I do take my jobs very, very seriously. And there is something self-actualizing about being able to wake up every single day and be able to pick up a phone from a constituent who has a question, whether it's the smallest thing like they need a light bulb fixed in the street light across from their house, which then you can refer them to a city council member, or if it's somebody who can't get their health insurance to cover a rare cancer screening. These are all phone calls that I've taken and that I've tried to help with, and I think that that's a pretty darn cool job, and I take it seriously. But when the parts of the job that aren't productive, that aren't conducive to good policy making, are requiring you to sit and continue playing in that charade, I don't play that game. I will leave happily knowing that they can continue to blow hot air without my presence.
Okay, that was your last question. Chair Myers, or Representative Myers.
Oh, I was.
Do you have more questions?
Well, I just would say that the question was never answered. There was a winding twist, but I ask a yes or no question. Do you believe that the ordinary person expects you to go drink at lunch. Is that what the ordinary person would expect of us?
Okay.
And that
Mr. Chair, I'll
question
be
was-
willing to answer it again if that's easier.
No.
yes, yes, no is what I was looking
We're like out
for.
of time for the 15 minutes, but I am going to, as chair, allow Representative Myers to ask questions. Representative Myers.
Thank you, Chair Davids. Representative Engen, I'm just going to have a few questions. And one of those is, how long have you served in the legislature?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Myers. This is my second term.
Representative Myers.
Thank you, Chair. And, during your time in committees, have you seen members leave committee?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Myers, all the time. I mean, it's as commonplace as it comes, and we've even seen a protest and stage walkout and a boycott of the legislature in 2025 from my colleagues. They didn't show up to work for a month. So yeah, they didn't show up to committee.
Representative Myers.
Thank you, Chair. And then I just kind of want to move on to, there's been a discussion about the duties of a legislator, and the work that we do down here. For you, outside committee work, what other duties as a legislator do you have?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Myers. Well, first and foremost is to be a dad and a husband, which I take extremely seriously. Second is to my constituents who are requesting help or assistance with something. We also have to talk with other legislators and colleagues like yourself about bills that we might be working on together or how we can craft them in a way that's conducive to a collaborative and cooperative style agreement. There's tons of work outside of this place. Yeah.
Representative Myers.
Thank you, Chair Davids. Given the environment that we've had down here, I mean, there's a lot of work to get stuff done. For you, what's the time mix between the work you're doing to draft, create legislation, build that support versus the time you're spending in a committee?
Representative Engen.
I think that there is less time to truly collaborate in committee about good ideas than the allocated time slot of that committee has. So in other words, when you have a 2-hour committee or you're given maybe an hour and 30 minutes, which I think is typical for some committees, that time is mostly utilized by political theater from those same bureaucrats or nonprofit executives who are seeking monetary gain instead of cross collaboration between legislators who are asking organic questions. We all have seen the talking points that the DFL and the GOP receive before they sit down at a committee hearing, basically telling them, here's why we should say we don't like a bill, here's why we should support our own bills, here's the questions to poke and prod. These are all commonplace occurrences, and I think if we were to get back to a little bit more about an authentic style and a free-flowing one that doesn't, kind of hamstring some of our actions and opportunities to make legislation, I think the place would be better for it. So very little time for true collaboration.
Representative Myers.
Thank you, Chair David. So is it fair to say that you spend a majority of your time outside of committee preparing? You had made a statement about, the time and effort you put in. So is it fair to say that time is spent more outside of committee, creating those solutions, working with constituents than inside the committees?
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Myers. Yes, 100%. I think if cameras are rolling, politicians are typically playing a little bit more of a charade. They're putting on a show more so than they are actually working. My favorite conversations that I have with members of the opposite party is in the back room when we agree on something, and we might vehemently disagree on 95% of things, but we find something that we can work together on. Alex Falconer and I, we couldn't be more different, but we also just did a bill to cap credit card interest rates. And it's fun when I get to do stuff like that. It's fun when I get to see somebody in an elevator that is going to hate me at 2:30 in committee, but we get along great in that little moment. So that's where the real work's done.
Representative Myers.
Thank you, Chair. And Representative, So in that example, that type of bipartisan effort doesn't necessarily happen a lot in committee. It's more of the work that you do outside those committees.
Rep. Engen.
Yes, that is true.
Okay. No other questions.
Okay. So we're well over the allotted time, but
I could continue to go, Mr. Chair, as long as you guys want.
if, so I think what we do now is we've had ample questioning here, and we're going to take a recess for, oh, yes, Chair Claiborne.
Thank you. So we heard a lot of things in this discussion, but I just kind of want to level set, right? There were lots of statements that have been made, but the question before the body, right? The question before us is, has the public trust been betrayed? And did the activity bring dishonor or disrepute to the House, right? And it's only about the House and our body. So I just want to make sure that I level set that about what because there were lots of things that were thrown out that really didn't have anything to do with the question before us at this moment. So I just want to make sure that we're level setting that before we take a break.
Mr. Chair, I can answer that. I'd love to answer that.
Representative Engen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative. I would say that Minnesotans don't trust this institution. It has no honor right now. Like, politicians are as trustworthy as gas station sushi right now for this exact reason. I'm honestly owning up to my mistake that I made on the morning of the 27th. I'm regretful. I am ashamed. I'm sorry. And I'm going to be made better because of it. I know that. But simultaneously, when I'm trying to do authentic, good work that is unique, that is written by myself and not just a staffer with an idea thrown at them so that they can put something on a lit piece to say that they should be reelected, I don't want to engage in that anymore. I think that this entire institution should turn away from the inauthenticity that is the House, that is the Senate, that is Minnesota government writ large. And when you see instances to be organic in your work, I take them, and I'm very diligent in how I go about my business here at the House. So I guess to your question, like, of course I'm a good representative. Of course I'm somebody that is upstanding and a reasonable Minnesotan would see as a hard worker.
Chair Claiborne.
Mr. Chair, that wasn't even a question. I didn't ask him a question. I was talking to the committee members, to us, our committee members and the public. And I do not see, if we have a low reputation, I don't understand how going out and drinking in the middle of the day is helping improve that reputation.
show up to work for a month.
Mr. Chair, Representative.
Okay, we're going to take a 15-minute recess. We'll come back and visit with Representative Hudson. So let's come back here at 11:30.
Okay.